I also hope this is indicative of the path forward for New Haven Public Schools, where we find value in all voices in an open and transparent way, rather than punishing the voices that go against the narrative. I wanted to stress the importance to the whole community of all community members feeling free to speak without fear of retaliation, because this makes all of our students safer and our school stronger. Thank you.
You. Our next speaker is Vicky Grubauer.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Great. My name is Vicky Grubauer, and I'm the parent of a third grader and a kindergartner at Worthington Hooker. We had planned to be at the meeting in person this evening as a group, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself, Nathan Grubauer, Christina Rodriguez, Manuel Moore, Marie and Parie Rayner, and Paul Rayner, Sabrina Freitas, Aya Narunsky, and Boris Landa, all parents in kindergarten A or KA at Hooker. Our kindergartners have been without a full-time certified classroom teacher or long-term sub since October. This is completely unacceptable and quite possibly illegal. Many parents, including myself, were called by DCF in November and questioned as our original teacher was under investigation after being placed on administrative leave a few weeks prior. We were not notified of the change in classroom teacher until a few weeks after the change occurred. This was the day before Thanksgiving. At this point, we've received no further communication to what is going on, nor what is the plan to ensure our children have a teacher this school year. I've spoken to the DCF worker and know that the DCF investigation has been completed well before winter break and things are in NHPS's hands. I've also conversed with our assistant superintendent. No details regarding a timeline for completion of the investigation have been provided. While we respect the need for privacy, the length of time it is taking to complete an investigation with no transparency and suboptimal solutions offered to our school meanwhile is completely unacceptable. We have a wonderful reading coach who is currently the primary teacher in our classroom, but she is only there 3 days a week. The rest of the days, we have paras and other teachers and staff in our K-2 building pulled in to cover the classroom. While we truly love and respect every one of them, no educator will tell you that this setup provides a consistent, optimal learning environment, particularly for kindergartners. We have a classroom of children and their families who are not getting the introduction to school that they deserve and are at risk of not having the foundational reading and math skills they're expected to have going into first grade. Additionally, our K-2 building is a teacher 2 days a week, as well as without a nurse 5 days a week, before taking into account teachers and staff who are out for other reasons, which stresses the whole system. When paras and other staff are covering the KA classroom, they're not able to provide the extra support to classrooms and students that their roles were designed to do, and the entire school is suffering. I'm aware of investigations in our neighboring district in Hamden that have come to conclusion much quicker already this school year. I'm also aware that multiple investigations across NHPS, so this situation may or may not be unique to Hooker. We're advocating for a sense of urgency to wrap up this investigation and allow for a permanent teacher and long-term sub positions to be posted to give our children the consistency of a certified teacher in their classroom 5 days a week. We urge the board to consider this classroom situation at Hooker, as well as other NHPS schools suffering from investigation delays and a lack of transparency, to prioritize our children and take the necessary steps to get teachers into our classrooms without further delay. Thank you for hearing us.
Our next speaker is Pauline Meyerson.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Good evening, New Haven Board of Ed members. Thank you for your service to our school system. I'm here to speak on behalf of Worthington Hooker School as a teacher there and the facilitator of our SPMT, and the dire situation of not having a nurse at the K-2 site on Canner Street. As a 34-year veteran of NHPS, I have experienced and witnessed far too many situations where students were inadequately supported or cared for, but this one is by far the most serious of all. For example, while teaching at Conti West Hills for 26 years, I witnessed inadequate nursing staff time, with only a half-time nurse at a building with over 640 students and 5 medicine cabinets bursting at the seams. The stressors this puts on the administration takes them away from their administrative duties, as well as the multiple fires that are coming at them on a daily basis to put out. To have a building with babies, kindergarten through second grade age, and not a single minute with a nurse on site at Canner Street is irresponsible and immoral. These children have such tremendous needs at any given moment in time, from the basic falls, cuts, scrapes, bruises, and accidents, to more serious episodes of possible allergic reaction, more serious falls or injuries, or trauma-related conditions. Children of this age are much more susceptible to all of these on a daily basis. Teachers, administrators, and school staff absolutely need the nurse not only to respond to unexpected situations, but also rely on a nurse's wellness expertise, as well as to provide small children with the TLC they sometimes very much need. For example, my own daughter was just such a child when young and was always in the nurse's office, called a frequent flyer. Well, she ended up being diagnosed with social anxiety and depression as an adolescent while in middle school. The signs were there from early on. You need to understand how crucial of a role a nurse plays in a school. Our nurse has been ordered not to go to Canner to respond to head injuries for babies of 5 to 7 years old. How in good conscience can we allow this to happen, especially during a post-COVID world with dysregulated children as those we currently serve? The children of kindergarten through second grade deserve the nurturing and care that other children in our district and certainly in neighboring suburbia receive.
Time.
Do what's right and assign a school nurse to Worthington Hooker K through 2. Thank you so much for your time.
Our next speaker is Rhonda Romani.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Romani. I was a parent of 2 students in New Haven Public School at Worthington Hooker, and I'm speaking up on the issue of intimidation and fear, especially of teachers at our school. I watched firsthand as the environment of Worthington Hooker changed with the change of administration at the top. And we had a environment where we had parents and families that were very close and involved in the school that with the change of leadership it became an environment more of fear, an environment more of intimidation. And it is important that our teachers are free to speak up, to speak their mind, to speak out when they feel it's necessary. And I really believe our democracy is based on this idea. And kids learn this in our schools. They learn how to be a part of this democracy in the small environments of our schools. I urge you to please support our teachers in their ability to speak out and to protect them from any kind of intimidation that is taking place. And specifically in the case that I know that you will be addressing later on today. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Julia Von Bloom.
Hello, my name is Julia Von, and I'm a New Haven. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So my name is Julia Von Bloom, and I'm a New Haven resident. I'm a parent of a student at New Haven Public School. I speak in my name and in the name of my husband, Wolfgang Fink. So I particularly advocate for teachers who worry about facing repercussions for expressing their opinions openly. So I think everyone's safety is enhanced when our educators can freely voice their thoughts and share their concerns without fear of retaliation. So free speech and expression is the basis of democracy and a fundamental right. So please support our teachers to be able to speak openly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker, Doris, please state your full name when you come on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Doris Zielinski. I'm a New Haven resident, a long-term New Haven resident. And I'd like to just thank you, first of all, for all your service. And second, to reinforce really the specialness of the First Amendment, and particularly for teachers, their ability to be heard, especially when they have concerns about security or safety or how we're educating the children they are responsible to educate every single day. So retaliation, retribution, kind of ways of hurting the ability to speak out should really be something that we all fight against strongly. And I urge you to do so. So thank you very much. And thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Maria Rubio. Maria Rubio. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
Line is very goggly. Please try again.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you can start speaking.
Hello. Okay, hello, everyone. My name is Maria Rubio, and I am a New Haven resident. I have 4 children who have all attend New Haven Public School. 3 of them are graduate already, and 1 is in junior high school. I have always been very involved when it came to my children's education. I encourage them to participate in class and to speak out on what they believe in. But we all know it takes a city to raise a child. I recognize there that the teachers have had a great influence on their upbringing, many with whom I have formed a great relationship. My 3 children have found role models and trusted adults that have helped amplify their voices when they did not feel like they could speak for themselves. I ask my children to be brave when it is hard to speak. Our voices are our powerful tool. At this moment, I am speaking on behalf of teachers who fear retaliation for speaking publicly. I believe everyone is safer when our teachers are able to use their First Amendment right and uplift the voices of students and parents. I thank the teachers for great during difficult situations. I ask the Board of Education to protect teachers and their First Amendment right. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Beverly Green.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm coming to you as a representative, a parent, and a representative of Worthington Hooker School Parent Teacher Association, our students, our school community, and our teachers. I'm here speaking about our lack of adequate nurse coverage at both locations. Most recently, we sent a letter to Ms. Lopez, Ms. Bond, Mr. White, Ms. Naglone, and Ms. Di Negra, and we haven't heard back. So I'm going to read the letter so we can have it in record. As you know, Worthington Hooker School is unique in that we are one school with two separate buildings, two buildings with students that deserve to receive timely and appropriate medical attention while at school, and families that deserve to feel confident that while their students are in the care of Worthington Hooker School, they will receive timely and appropriate medical attention. It's unfortunate that based on information from the administration, families, staff, and students, the aforementioned is not happening within our school community. In December 2023, the Parent Teacher Association conducted a school-wide survey to gather information and data about how families felt about the lack of adequate nurse coverage. And from the survey, we learned that 90% of staff and families believe it is important that there is nurse coverage at both Cantor and Whitney buildings. This data is not surprising to us. I won't share all of the open-ended responses, but I think it is valuable that I share a few. As a teacher, not having a nurse available on site at all times is not only extremely stressful, but also disruptive to the daily learning. I am not a trained medical professional, but I am a trained teacher. It is unreasonable to expect teachers to do the job of another professional when a nurse is unavailable to come over immediately. That is a statement from a teacher. As a parent, having a nurse at the Cantor Street location is extremely important. Every child is important, and no one can predict when the nurse would be needed, but he or she should be accessible to each student in the event services are required. I'm actually very disappointed to learn that a school nurse is not on the premises during the duration of school hours. Again, that doesn't mean in another building. That is also from a parent. My child has had 4 to 5 nurse visits so far this year for 23-24 school year. It is very important that all children who need medical services in school have them. No child should have to wait for medical treatment, on-scene treatment advisement. Both Worthington Hooker schools need a nurse, and this does not include a nurse traveling between the lower and the upper school. That is from a parent. My daughter has viral asthma and needed her inhaler on several occasions last year. Because the nurse spent some time at the little school, she was able to have her medication administered to her at school. Under the new circumstances, what would happen to a child who has an asthma attack at the little school? What about other medical issues that require medication or medical examination? That is also from a parent. I am a nurse, a tech nurse aides in a high school setting. I've seen firsthand what happens when there is a medical emergency and there is no nurse on duty to help students and ultimately help teachers. This is a dangerous precedent that puts teachers in an even more difficult position. I'm stretching their job descriptions to include nurse. Students need a nurse on campus, and teachers need to have one. It makes me feel very uncomfortable to know there would not be a nurse on duty for my child if she were to get seriously injured or she ended up having a long-term condition to manage while at school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Peter Butler.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thanks. First of all, thank you for your service to our city. I really appreciate it. And I am the vice president of the PTA at Worthington Hooker, and I'm actually going to finish the letter that Bev was just reading, since we figured she wouldn't be able to get through it. The last paragraph is, in summation, we request that a New Haven Public School nurse is assigned to both Worthington Hooker school buildings on a full-time basis. It is dangerous to the students, staff, and families to not have adequate medical services at both locations. If necessary, we are prepared to attend the next New Haven Board of Education meeting to speak publicly about it. Just to add in as well, actually earlier this year, my daughter passed out at school. Now, fortunately, she passed out at the upper school where the nurse is actually located and throughout the day, because the nurse has been told not to go to Cantor. So she was able to attend to my daughter while we were awaiting the ambulance, thank God. if that happened to a child at the lower school, right, that child would not have the attention of any trained medical professional, and that is very concerning. Too many times we wait to do the right thing until there's a really bad situation that blows up kind of in our faces. Please don't let this be one of them. Every school should have a school nurse. It is as easy as that. Please act for our school. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Julianne Headley.
Yes, hi. I'm here to reinforce and build on what has already been shared regarding my experience with the nursing support at Worthington Hooker. I'm a parent of 2 children aged 5 and 7 at the lower school, and it is my understanding that for very good reasons, the nurse is stationed at the upper school to support kids with certain medical needs. However, this means that our younger children are often not seeing a nurse when they need one. Our teachers and administrators are de facto medical staff, and our parents are expected to fill the gap. One example in my case is that my children have been to see a nurse about 6 times since the start of the school year. Only one of those times have they had the chance to see a nurse, and 2 of those times they had suspected head injuries. Those were times that they were not able to see a nurse. When those head injuries occurred, the guidance is usually for me to come pick them up and bring them to see a doctor, because a nurse won't be able to see them. They will maybe hand me a concussion form to watch for any symptoms at home. While I have some flexibility in my work schedule, many parents do not have the flexibility or the funds to pay copays, nor should they need to if a nurse is on staff. Despite our teachers and administrators doing the best they can, it's not their job to fill this nursing gap. It's important that our kids and our parents receive the medical support they need. And really, this is not only a safety concern, but a concern of equity. Every school should have a nurse to ensure that the students are safe. Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Our next speaker, Nicole, please state your full name when you come on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Nicole Fusey. I'm a parent of a pre-K kindergarten and a Head Start at Nathan Hale. And I was just calling to support Ms. Santarski. We feel that it's unfair to her and to the students to remove her at this time of the year. We have 4 months left, and we feel that she should finish out the year with our students before moving on to her new position. This is going to disrupt everybody, from the teachers to the students to the parents, and we feel very strongly that she should stay through the year. And that was it.
Our next speaker is Stephanie Dragon.
You may start. Hello.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
No problem. No problem. I can hear
Sorry.
you.
Okay. My name is Stephanie Dragon Janaeus, and I'm calling on behalf of Miss Z. She's the pre-K teacher at Nathan Hale. We were notified very late, like yesterday, about the fact that she would no longer be the teacher. My daughter has a great rapport with her. She has taught her so much, and we all know kids at the pre-K age as 3 and 4 years old, some 5-year-olds. It's very hard for them to transition into having a new teacher that they already, that they have no idea who she is. And for all of a sudden for them to change out in the middle of the school year like this is unfair. And the fact that they didn't even give the parents and the kids ample enough time to be able to prepare our children for this. Like tomorrow, there's going to be a new face in that class, and the kids have no idea. My daughter, I don't even know how to break it down to her. So I think this is really unfair. I would love for Ms. Z to continue out the year, and then whatever has to happen, this coming September, then that has to happen. But I would appreciate it if she can continue to stay up till June for the end of the school year. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Gala, please state your full name.
Good evening. My name is Jerabel Delgado. I am the mom of one of the students at Nathan Hale at Mrs. Zantarski's class. I'm actually on this because I feel it is very detrimental to my child and all of our students in A105. They have built such a bond with her that I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to us as parents, to her as a teacher, and to our students who have a lot of different personalities, and she has worked with every single one of them. She has different parents in her class who speak a different language, and she works her way, she communicates, she extends a hand to her parents and her students. She never allows them to feel left behind. In a sense, to me, this is important because aside of what's going on in the New Haven public schools with, staff shortage, nursing shortage, we all get that and we all have to work together. And with that being said, I don't feel as though our 3 and 4-year-olds should have to transition into meeting someone new and that being so detrimental to them. I feel like they're going into kindergarten. They should stick with the one teacher who has taught them from the very beginning. That is what will help these children. That is what they're looking forward. This isn't something that came easy having to explain to my son. He is very much attached to Ms. Z. He is a student that is very quiet yet observative. He doesn't do well with meeting new people. That is something that is something I'll have to teach him in a lifetime, but that's my job. I'm comfortable with the fact that he has a teacher he can go to, a teacher that helps him want to go to school. She gives him the life of wanting to educate himself, and I'm proud of that. So with that being said, I would really much ask you guys to please keep her in A105 at Nathan Hale. These are the kinds of teachers that us as parents, we would want them to go out through, elementary, middle, and high school. She is a great example. And that'll be all. Thank you for listening.
And thank you.
Our next speaker, Whitney, please state your full name.
You should begin speaking.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I was muted. Hi,
problem.
Whitney Pascal. I'm a parent of a child at Nathan Hale. I'm also here to advocate for Tracy, Ms. Zantarski. I just want to say I'm extremely upset with the change. I unfortunately was notified a bit sooner than the other parents because my child is special needs. And I'm extremely upset, disappointed on this change. She should be with our children until June. She works great with my child. He loves going to school because of this woman. This is so disappointing for the children. We should have stay. We were notified, parents were notified yesterday that she wouldn't be here today, even though today was a day off for the children. I was notified last week. I have called, I have left messages, left emails with no reply, no call back regarding the situation. This transition for my son is going to be extremely difficult. I can't even explain to my just turned 4-year-old what is happening. He doesn't understand properly. He feels he's going to go to school and see the best teacher he's ever had. He loved going to school because of this woman. She's been nothing but great. Her communication is amazing. I just feel this is very disheartening for all of us as parents and children to have to deal with this change. And this change that was extremely unacceptable to be given a day before, to expect my child to go into a school with a new teacher. Thank you.
Hello?
And thank you as well.
Yes. I don't know if they can they hear me?
Our next speaker is Colby. Colby, please state your full name.
Hi, my name is Colby Lynn Johnson, and I am a parent of a pre-K student at Nathan Hale as well. I think that it is completely unacceptable to be removing Miss Tracy in the middle of the school year. My daughter has been in her class since last school year, and I'm a single mother, and you know, being a parent is hard. Being a single parent is even harder. And Miss Tracy has made it so easy for me to go to her and explain our situation. And she's helped me out a lot with, you know, just parenting advice and etc. My daughter loves Miss Tracy. You know, anytime she has to stay home because she's sick, she, you know, can't wait to go back and see her teacher. The way that it was handled, you know, I found out over the weekend. And, you know, how do you explain that to a 4-year-old that their teacher, somebody that they love, and another trusted adult is not going to be there anymore? If my daughter is not with me, she is with my mother. And if she's not with my mother, she is with Miss Z. I just think that this is completely unacceptable. And I would really suggest, you know, you guys reconsider keeping her in the Nathan Hale pre-K classroom. Thank you.
Madam President, that concludes all hands raised.
Thank you, Dr. White and Dr. Joyner.
Madam President, I'd like to thank the commenters for their courtesy and adherence to the time limits set by the board.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. We'll move on to the student presentation. Dr. Negron.
Madam President, due to the cancellation of school, the students were not able to come. They were scheduled to come with a staff person. So I plan to add this agenda item to our next meeting so that they can come and show you what they've been working on.
Thank you, Dr. Negron. And so we'll move on to the action items. The first being the approval of the board meeting minutes for January 22nd. So motion to approve.
So moved.
For a second. Mr. Wilcox?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on to approve the board meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2024. Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Ms. Downer?
Yes.
Students are none. Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, and so that motion passes. And we'll move on to the discussion and possible action of the school closing for presidential elections on April 2nd.
Madam Chair, do you need a motion?
Yes. Was anyone going to present this really quick, or we're just voting on it?
It's
So motion. Yep, it's pretty self-explanatory, but a motion. Mayor Elicker?
I'm sorry, was there a motion?
No, not yet.
I was going to make the motion.
I'll wait until the item's on the table.
Go ahead, Dr. Joyner.
Madam Chair, I move that we close our schools for the presidential elections on April 2nd, 2024.
Mr. Wilcox?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner, Mr. Wilcox. Now, Mayor Elicker, discussion?
Yeah, I understand there's always logistical issues with this, but it would be nice to find a pathway to keep our schools open on election day. I know that part of the school is used, but it's unfortunate we have to close schools for every election day. And it's a tight timeline for us to turn anything around and find a pathway to keep the schools open for this election day. But I just encourage the staff to see if there's a possible way in the future to keep schools open on election day. We want our kids to have as much exposure as possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Dr. Joyner?
Madam Chair, I think the mayor makes a good point. particularly given the fact that we're trying to catch up. And I'm wondering, would it make sense for me to withdraw my motion and for us to look into what the possibilities are that would allow us to keep the schools open and also allow for the elections? I'm just, as Dr. Brown has taught me recently, this is a wondering.
Hold that thought for 1 second, Dr. Joyner. Mayor Elicker, you have your hand up again, or is that from before?
I was just going to make a comment on that. I don't want to open up a can of worms. I often open up a can of worms for Tom and his team. So just given that the election is not too far off in the future, if you all maybe could contemplate that, but I would not encourage Dr. Joyner to remove his, withdraw his motion.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Elicker. Dr. Negron?
Just want to share the communication that I received. So I know that there's going to be an election coming up closer now, which we're going to be able to navigate through because it doesn't impact many of our spaces. So we're working through that. The team has worked through it. We're set to go. The issue becomes April 2nd, being that it could be a primary. It will require basically almost all of our buildings. With all of our buildings being needed for elections, there's no way that we will be able to maintain our normal operations of schooling. So I just want everybody to know we did receive it with ample time. The team took a look at it. At first, I'll be very honest with you. I said we can't close, like there's already an approved calendar. My team then told me that in the past, because of the magnitude of the election, that it has been considered by the board. So that is why I had asked and brought it forth so that you can think about it. But again, we have taken a look at it. It would be almost impossible given the scope of the spaces in the schools that would be needed for those primaries.
Thank you, Dr.
And
Negron.
lastly,
Mr. Wilcox?
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Lastly, right, I am the one that wants to keep schools open all the time. I basically say, unless I have to, I will not close, I will not delay. But this is one that is very challenging.
Thank you, Dr. Negron. Mr. Wilcox?
I just have a quick question because by contract, we work with the teachers union on the school calendar. I just wanted to confirm that they were part of the group that was looking at this decision. Thank you.
Dr. Negron?
I can answer that. They were not part of the group looking at that decision. Basically, knowing that we're working already with an approved calendar that you approved, it does have the 182 student days that are extra. With today's cancellation, what that would mean would be that we've already used 2, right? So we're at 180. Should you decide to close schools for the primaries, it will mean that we have to add 1 day to that calendar to ensure that our students get the mandated 180 days.
If I may, just moving forward, I highly recommend having those discussions with them before it comes before the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Negron and Mr. Wilcox. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote to approve the school closing for presidential elections on April 2nd, 2024. Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Ms. Downer?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. And so that motion passes. And we'll move on to the personnel report. Dr. Negron?
Madam Chair, before you have the recommendations that I'm putting before you.
No.
And I am seeking your approval.
The motion to approve, Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, I move we approve the action items of the superintendent's personnel report.
Madam Chair, I
Thank you,
second the
Mr.
motion.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox and Dr. Joyner. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote on approving the action items of the personnel report. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Ms. Downer,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes. And is there any further discussion on the personnel report, Dr. Negron? Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, thank you. Finance and operations, Mr. Wilcox?
All right, thank you very much. A couple things before I move items. First off, if anybody needs anything moved separately, please let me know. We are going to be moving at least one with Clifford Beers because of a request. So I'll note a couple other things. One is after a discussion with the superintendent and other board members, we'll be removing the purchase order for facilities management express this evening so that there's time for more information to be provided for those that had questions related to it. Because this purchase order was to be effective beginning of March, we do have another F&O and another board meeting in order to be able to move that. So out of a desire to make sure people have the information they need to make decisions, we're going to take another stab at doing that. Second thing, I'll note that one of the things on the agenda tonight is something we don't typically see, and it's a resolution approving conveyance of interest in the old Strong School property. As you all probably know, the board relinquished interest in this, I think, in 2010, but there, and upon legal review on the city side, as things are being moving over for that very exciting development project that's happening there, there's some title things that need to happen. It was interesting. We had our former chief operating officer, Attorney Pinto, there to explain it to us. It was nice having him back in F&O and hearing a little bit about the history of New Haven schools and titles and so on. So, but that is board's already given back these building, and but this is to clear up some title issues so that it can move forward with the final movement so that project can get started. And then finally, one of the items that's on there tonight is there's a contract to have GLY construction remodel a ramp at Edgewood School to include a wheelchair ramp around the nurse's office. And you might be thinking, hey, haven't I seen this before? And the answer is yes. There was an issue with city purchasing on a previous award of this to a different contractor that required for it to go back out to bid. Previous awards were rescinded by them, and this is not work that's being done that's been done before. We're not paying for the same thing twice. We are going to be getting input from our legal counsel, and we'll discuss it in finance and operations about the best way forward to note the rescinding of the previous approvals by the board, whether it just requires a formal motion of the board or minutes changes for those meetings. So, but just to clarify, this is work that has not been done previously. We're not having many ramps. This is to make it available for a wheelchair ramp to the nurse's office, which if you're not familiar at Edgewood School, the nurse's office is down on a lower level near the library. So this is work that needs to happen. So I see a hand raised. Is there a question about anything that I just said? I know I said a lot.
I just wanted you to just clarify the tabling of the FMX contract. I know you said it was going to be pushed aside, but I would like to have it tabled until as much needed time. We have, I guess the next contract is ending, I guess, the 30th of June. So I know you were giving out a date, but I think until I can digest the information, I would like it to be tabled until we are all clear on the contract, until I am clear.
Okay.
And also for the award of the contract, according to the Robert rules, you would need a motion to rescind. And I'm actually recommending that motion be as close to the date that the city of New Haven rescinded it last year, that the minutes be amended. So that is my recommendation today to reflect the contract.
And that
For-
you're, if I may, for the second part of that, that's for the wheelchair ramp?
Yes, so
Okay.
right now, we currently have 2 wheelchair ramps, but I'm not recommending, I'm asking that we take a look at that to be rescinded by motion close to what the city purchase department had actually rescinded it.
Okay, so on that item, what I'm saying is that we're going to consult with our attorney and the city purchasing agent the best way forward. Because it was formally rescinded by the purchasing department, it would not be possible for work to happen under that regardless of board action, because it's not possible to have that. So we're going to be discussing at Finance and Operations the best way forward, and we'll bring to you all whatever that is. And I'm guessing at this point, it'll either be corrections to the specific meeting minutes to note that that was rescinded, or a formal motion where we formally rescind it. And then I would also say correct the meeting minutes, so that meeting minutes should be able to stand on their own. So that's that item. As far as the first one, what I'm suggesting is that we, after discussion with the superintendent, we'll pull this back to Finance and Operations Committee meeting to discuss it at the next meeting, to see about bringing it back at a future board meeting. If it's the will of the board to have a formal motion where we do that, fine. Then I'm perfectly happy to make that motion, which would be effect tabling it by sending it
So
back
I
to
am
the committee that's
definitely-
responsible for financial and operations issues.
So basically, I am asking that it is tabled. Facility management system is definitely needed, but it's also how we execute that facility management system, considering the conditions of our schools. And I have been visiting some of the schools, and I will continue to visit. I'm particularly concerned about how we execute our work orders, the contracts that we have pertaining that. There is data that comes from that, but it's also how we execute. This does affect teaching and learning. And I thank you. I thank you. I think it needs to be tabled, and not tabled into a point where we can see who actually bid it, instead of just, presenting something to the board where we don't see who's actually bidding, and just giving us information that that's really deflective. So I just think that that's all I have to say. But I would also encourage you not to give a date to when we will reconvene on this subject.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will make a formal motion. I'm going to make it right now. And that as I move that we send back to the Finance and Operations Committee for more work, the purchase order listed on the agenda as purchase order number 2 with Facilities Management Express Incorporated.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on the item? Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, just a clarifying question. So what does this motion do versus us pulling it and not voting on it? And because
If
we
I
are
may,
going to be
it removes it from the agenda tonight and it's sent back to the committee. It came out of the Finance and Operations Committee, so this is the will. If the board approves this, it'll send it back to that committee for more work. And it'll be up to that committee's agenda as to when it comes back before the full board.
Yeah, so it's essentially the same thing. It's just that we're voting on it.
okay, just a formal process to do it. Okay, thank you.
But it sends it back to the group with the responsibility by board bylaws to track down the information and do the work on behalf of the board.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
So I just got one more thing to say on this. Is it possible?
If you're
Go ahead,
recognized
Chair.
by
We're
the
still
chair,
discussing.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Ms. Downer. Ms. Downer?
Okay, I just wanted to clarification when it was brought to me to review. Normally we have a policy when there is purchase orders or contracts that have specifically any amount over $24,000, $24.99, which is close to $25,000, that it comes with the bidding process. And we get to see who actually has participated in our bidding process, regardless on if it was vendored out. There was a couple of things that needed to be corrected. I did submit my questions in enough time to get them. And, I do actually work. I'm gainfully employed, where I didn't get the chance to review documents that was basically given to me this evening. There was questions that just was not answered, and I'm not comfortable with voting on that. Again, I take this position very serious, and I want to make sure that I'm voting and doing the right thing for our school system, our teachers, and everything. So I just needed more clarification. So if I'm asking a lot, I just wanted the information. And today, the information did not come to me the way it should have came to me. That's
Mr.
all I
Wilcox?
say. That's all I want to say.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, and so now we have another chance to have information, and just an open thing for any item. Just a reminder, all finance and operation items are posted the Friday before a finance and operations committee meeting. Our next meeting is next Monday, so items will be posted this Friday. If we get the questions before our meeting on Friday, the board members on the finance and operations committee are committed to trying to get as many answers as we possibly can. And that also gives time for staff to be able to pull together documents and so on. So this will be another chance to do that and not require a vote on the item. But this is, just to be clear, this is a vote to send the item back to committee and not be voted on by the full board tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Dr. Joyner, you had your hand up, or?
I was just going to call the question because the motion itself makes sure that it goes back, and it should give the board member and other board members ample time to ask questions. And we also should be reminded of our policies regarding information that has to be submitted. If it is over a certain amount, we should not just see the winning bid. We should see who the other vendors were that bidded for the particular service.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we will vote to send back the F&O purchase order number 2. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Ms. Downer?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and so that item passes. Mr. Wilcox?
Thank you. I was asked to move this item separately, so I move that we approve amendment number 1, which is an amendment to an agreement with Clifford Beard's Guidance Clinic.
Second.
Any discussion? Excuse me. Okay, seeing none, it was amendment 1 or agreement 1?
It was agreement 1, which is an amendment to a previous agreement with Clifford Beers.
Got it. Okay. All right, seeing no discussion, we will vote on approving agreement number 1, which is the amendment to agreement with Clifford Beers Guidance Clinic. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Ms. Downer?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Recuse.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and so that item passes.
And finally, I'll make
Mr. Wilcox?
the final motion, and that is I move that we approve the 1 abstract, the remaining 13 agreements, the 2 contracts, the remaining 3 purchase orders, and 1 resolution as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Mr. Wilcox, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote to approve the remaining F&O items. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Ms. Downer?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and so that item passes. And Mr. Wilcox, does that conclude your F&O?
That concludes the F&O action items. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No students report, they're not here. Teaching and learning, Dr. Joyner.
Okay, let me begin my report. First of all, let me thank Ms. Keisha Red-Hannons and the superintendent for really doing the groundwork for our committee meetings, and also Dr. Benitez. We usually talk a couple of times a week about these issues. One of the things that I hope we can see going forward is that we're going to work on the 600 series for revision. But I'd also like to add, and I'd also like to ask Dr. Benitez to chime in when she feels necessary, that even some of our old policies are still current because the legal justification for them has not changed. We might need to change some language in some of those policies, but we need to try to get around to revising and examining and documenting the date that we did that. And this comes directly from Dr. Benitez, so that the public will know that we are on our game when it comes to policy development. So at the last TL meeting, I referred the minutes to you guys, and there was a really great report by Eric Barbarito on the health development of the physical pathway among children in our school districts. And I also put the committee on notice that we will be looking at 3 policy areas: the family life education document, the new health education program, and exemption from instruction policy. Now, what I think we lack, and this is consistent with the discussion I had with Dr. Benitez, is that we have to be very clear about the role of the board vis-a-vis the role of the professionals in the district for developing policy. I think the other thing that we have to be clear about, if some of you were privy to the mayor's inauguration speech, we have to be clear about what happens in classrooms and schools and how do we create policy that gets down to that level, so that whatever we're doing at the top of the system is providing cover and support for the people on the front lines. Mayor Elicker, when he gave his inauguration speech, he talked about going up to East Rock and looking out over the city and envisioning what our city would look like in 10 years based on the priorities that we set as a community. In many ways, that's analogous to what Dr. Negron is starting now with the strategic planning process. And of course, Mr. Wilcox and I were there for the entire duration of that particular training day. The idea that the kinds of students that we want to develop by our system is directly connected to what our values and resources, what our values are and how our resources are allocated. So we came up at the end with a portrait of a student, but quite frankly, we have to have a portrait of any stakeholder that has some influence on the growth and development of children. So we need a portrait of a parent, the portrait of a teacher, a principal, a paraprofessional. And the reason is that Dr. Negron is bringing this vocabulary in the district, words that we know, but the whole notion of coherence. And that is that every single thing we do in any other part of the system will have a ripple effect on things in other parts of the system. And so if we're going to have a coherent system, that is a unified system, then we need to make sure that our policy reflects what we want to see done in a classroom with children, in a building with leadership. And that's like looking out over the city. We should imagine classrooms of students and whether or not what we're doing is making a difference with them. And I'm hoping that we can continue to develop these portraits so that it becomes very clear that every person in this community has a responsibility for children. even if you don't have any. Because if you're in the hospital, you're gonna have somebody's children waiting on you. Somebody, if our police department, many of those young people are former students of ours. So the vocabulary that is emerging now is really important for us. And I think that the last word I want to add to that is alignment. There should be a direct connection between and among every action that goes on in this district with the idea that it's going to make a student and a teacher in a classroom feel supported and that we can give them what they need in order to improve. The other part of that is the whole notion of whole child. That can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different peoples. We're certainly not educating half children, but the clinical definition of the whole child would be the 6 developmental pathways that comes out of the Coma model. And I will send information in the next packet that has a summary of that. The other part of improving the teaching and learning climate has to do with staff development. And the superintendent and her staff have done something recently that we have not done, quite frankly, since Gerald Tarazi was the superintendent. And that is to have a systemic, multiple level data analysis protocol. Any system that runs without data is shooting in the dark. And I shouldn't have used that metaphor because of recent events, but we're stumbling in the dark. And so the idea of having a data system, a collection system that looks at all the relevant data to give us information about our effectiveness as a board, our effectiveness as an organization, and the impact of programs and actions on children in classrooms and the teachers and administrators that serve them. So as I'm sure that Dr. Negron is going to provide more clarity to that when we complete the strategic plan. And the last thing about that is that that's also the first time in a long time that I've seen the entire village in one room. And, you know, people will jump up here and say, it takes a village. Well, we don't have one yet. So we have to rebuild the village. And I think we're off to a good start in that. And I'd like to thank everybody who has participated in that. And we have to really faithfully replicate the Coma process. It is the best school reform program in the history of school reforms, as indicated by an independent group of some of the top evaluators in the country. And if you read the Borman report, you'll see that. So it's not just the academic achievement of kids that we're concerned about, it's also their development as full human beings. Because if you're smart and evil, that's not a good combination. And if you don't appreciate all the resources that are in the system, then you have a problem. Because we have more resources and options for children than any school district in the state. And if anybody wants to debate me on that, I'd be glad to do that on our time, not on the board's time. And so that's critically important. So character is a big part of what we will want to do going forward. And that concludes my report. We'll have a meeting next week, and we'll go through some of these issues again, as well as looking at ways in which we can develop a protocol for wholesale input on policy revision. I'm hoping that Dr. Benitez will talk about that when she talks about governance. Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Questions or comments for Dr. Joyner on teaching and learning? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Facilities Naming Committee. Dr. Joyner?
Okay. Well, again, we're doing very well in that. And we will be able to, at the final board meeting this month, give you an update on the voting. One of the things that I'm a little concerned about is that, like the national voting system, we don't have enough participation. But at some point, we're going to have to cut it off, report the votes to the board, and then I will move to have those 2 people honored. But I can't say enough about the IT department, particularly Eric Schultz, and Dr. Finley, Justin Harmon, and the superintendent. I love her project management approach, and those are the people that are on that project. It's not a big project, but it's important to have people on both sides on it. So we're in a good place with the facilities naming.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Questions or comments for Dr. Joyner? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Negron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, I do have 2 updates for you. First, I would like to start by spending a few minutes on where we are with the strategic operating plan development process. And for that, Dr. White is going to be helping me with our slides. Okay. So we kicked off, next slide, Dr. White. We did kick off our strategic operating plan with the team on the 8th. And I'm very grateful for all the different stakeholders who were invited and who attended our first design sprint. Here, what you're seeing, and I want to reiterate to the public what it is that we are doing as a team. And that is to, by the time we are done, we want to make sure that we have a product that we're going to bring forth to you, the board, and that is a new strategic operating plan. That is going to be a multi-year plan that will be focused, coherent, and actionable, with the whole purpose behind it being on how we are going to advance student achievement across the district. Through this process, we are engaging stakeholders in a transparent planning process, again, looking to create a shared vision for the success for our children, and also making a commitment to a long-term plan, and not only a plan, but also the implementation, progress monitoring, and continuous improvement. So I want to take you back to the timeline again in the next slide. So there I am showing that we engage in the planning. In the month of January, we are just took care of design sprint number 1, just to kind of show you where we are, again, with the hopes that we're going to bring you something in the last board meeting on May 20th, so that hopefully it'll be something that you will approve, so that we can launch it starting late June. Want to talk to you a little more about what it is that we did in that design sprint, and remind you again of the membership. So that membership does include a diverse group of constituents. It is made up of a total of 66 people. They represent not only NHPS, meaning that we have representation from students, parents, staff, union representatives, and board members. I think you heard Dr. Joyner mention that both he and Mr. Wilcox were present with us as members of the design team. But we also had community partners, college and university partners, City of New Haven representatives, alders, state representatives, and clergy. So in total, we had 83% of the membership present who were there for the first design sprint. And as part of that sprint, there were a few learning tasks for the participants. One of those, and I believe one of the crucial parts of it, was understanding the anatomy of a strategic plan. So understanding, before we even begin, what are the components of a strategic plan? So in the next slide, I have for you an image that I believe does wonders in trying to get people to wrap their minds around what is a strategic plan. So this image comes from my friends over at Education Elements. I do have their permission to use it. And basically is looking that it is grounded in 3 key components, starting with knowing our why. In other words, it's knowing our mission. So knowing the reason why it is that we exist. Why are we a public district? Why are we in existence? And having clarity as to where it is that we want to go, in other words, our vision. And most importantly, in my opinion, knowing our core beliefs as an organization, because we are NHPS and we are different, we are unique, because we have a set of beliefs that distinguish us from other organizations and other districts. And being very clear about what it is that we believe in matters, because that then directs in how it is that we do things as New Haven Public Schools. So with a very clear mission, vision, and beliefs, we can then begin to determine the focus areas that are also referred to as priorities. The areas that we wish to prioritize in the next 3 to 5 years. So we need to know exactly what it is that we want to prioritize. From there, the objectives have to be set to articulate the high-level strategies that we will employ in order to meet our goals. And we need to set clear goals with project action plans and identify from the very start what our key performance indicators or key KPIs are. So knowing how we intend to measure our progress, both through measures of implementation, but most importantly, by naming what our student outcomes are going to be. And as part of getting us there, what we did in the design sprint, in our next slide, I had participants take a look at the current articulated mission. So this is the reason that the last time we did this back in 2020, this is the way that we articulated our existence and why it is that we exist. I also had participants take a look at explore other mission statements from different districts throughout the state, just to get an idea on how these mission statements are usually articulated, because this is important. These words have got to capture why it is that we exist and basically our North Star, so that it is clearly articulated. So we did that. We had an opportunity to collect input from the participants that will be used to revisit this current articulation of the mission statement or to update it as well. I also had participants in the next slide will show you, we also did the same process with our vision statement. This is the current vision statement, the one that was drafted back in 2020. I have participants look at it. I have participants offer input and feedback so that, again, we can draft something for everybody to respond so that we can have our new vision articulated for the next plan. Similarly, in the next slide, I also had all participants take a moment to take a look at our core beliefs. Again, so our core beliefs being equitable opportunities, a culture of continuous improvement, high expectations in collaboration. So I had them also provide input. Should this continue to be the core beliefs? Are there core beliefs that we are missing? Should we be drafting them differently? So we also engage in an exercise around our core beliefs. And in the next slide, I also had participants take a look at the focus areas that were articulated in the current plan that we're working under. So those are the 5 priorities that you're seeing there before you that currently exist in our 2020-2024 strategic plan. So from there, next slide. After I had everyone grounded in the components of a strategic plan and establishing common language, the team proceeded to engage in a review of data through a noticings, wondering, and key takeaways protocol that we utilize to analyze the information that has been collected from the entire community through the Thought Exchange platform. That was the platform that I explained to you, allows us to leverage people having easy access to answer thoughts that I put out in the form of questions. And then the platform allows us to leverage artificial intelligence to be able to quickly create patterns of the data that we are collecting. So as a reminder, we post the following questions to the community by sending a communication to all internal and parents, 612 students, and any community partner that is currently has an email attached to our parent link database. So all those folks received the Thought Exchange. And again, the questions were, what is working well in an HPS? What opportunities exist for improvements in an HPS? And what are the most important skills and experiences our students need to get from their education in order to prepare them for success in learning and life? So the design team took all that data that came in from the community. They analyzed that data again, utilizing noticing, wonderings, and takeaways. We also engaged the participants in another data analysis, but this one had to do with longitudinal data that we were able to pull related to literacy, math, enrollment in facilities, talented educators in terms of recruitment numbers, retention numbers, culture and climate, finance in college and career. So again, everybody engaged in those exercises. And through those exercises, the last task that we engaged in was to take all that data and leveraging what we had learned from that data and the analysis, we engaged in a thought exchange to be able to identify the most significant priorities so that we could potentially build our 3-5-year strategic plan based again on the community's input that came in through the thought exchange, but also through the longitudinal data that the team was analyzing. So with that, in the next slide, I want to tell you where we stand right now. The team is currently looking at settling on the priorities, again, leveraging the information that from those analysis that we engage in, and also utilizing the tool. So I actually do want to take a moment to read to you the analysis that we now have, again, all data that we have that will be used to engage the team to be able to identify what the priority areas are going to be. So if you indulge me for 1 minute, I do want to read this. And again, this came from the artificial intelligence summary in Thought Exchange. The responses indicates a strong emphasis on improving academic achievement, particularly in literacy and mathematics, as well as a focus on the development of social emotional skills. There is a call for increased family and community engagement and a need for equitable access for resources and opportunities for all students. The importance of attracting and retaining high-quality teaching staff is highlighted, along with the need for professional development and support for educators. The responses also underscore the necessity for a safe and supporting learning environment, which includes addressing behavioral issues and ensuring the physical safety of school facilities. Furthermore, the need for a coherent and sustainable learning system is emphasized, also with the importance of using relevant and actionable data to guide improvements. Lastly, the responses highlight the importance of advocating for equitable school funding and addressing operational efficiencies. So again, the team is currently working through this. And the next step will be that we are sending information back out to all the members of the design team to choose areas of interest to them. So now we can begin to organize the team by subcommittee to continue to delve into these topic areas and go back and put out thought exchanges to the entire community for more input and more feedback. So that is where we are as it relates to the first sprint. And again, I do want to thank everybody who gave up an entire day to engage with us in the process. And I am grateful for the wide representation that we had, because it actually felt that we had the entire community there in the room. So that concludes my first update as it relates to the strategic operating plan design process. So at this point, I will pause before going on to my next update in the event that there are comments or questions.
Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Negron. Questions or comments, Mr. Wilcox?
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Just wanted to say that I was privileged enough to be there and had a wonderful time donating another vacation day to New Haven Public Schools. Also wanted to mention that the student board member, Mr. Musser, was there as well. It's a good group of people there dealing with a lot of the issues and challenges in the schools and all the good stuff. Did want to highlight the Thought Exchange platform, which was also mentioned by somebody in public comment, as a great way of getting input. We used it during that day, and being able to put in your own ideas and then kind of gives rate other people's ideas as well. So, you would have a chance to go, oh, I didn't think of that. That's a great idea too. That's 5 stars for me as well. And just having all that data and having it just being right there available, as well as all the hundreds or I guess total thousands of responses that came in from the community on those 3 questions. So I thought that was great, and just wanted to highlight that it was great to be able to see the data, as well as then have a demonstration of when we used it ourselves in that process. And I hope we continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Dr. Yarborough? Dr. Jordan, did you take your hand down? You're muted. Dr. Yarborough.
Thank you. Just a quick thank you for all those who participated, and Dr. Negron for your leadership. I appreciate the investment of time and strategy, and just the deliberate nature of the walkthrough of this experience, and the results, I think, reflects the deliberate intention and strategy behind how we build for the next years. I think it would be easy to put buzzwords together and say we're going for this, but the process of generating buy-in and clarity takes time, takes intentionality, and it takes kind of all of the parties at the table contributing and being willing to come on to the same page. While it would have been easy to do an email survey in a half day or a quarter of a day, I appreciate you sticking to kind of the full request for participation, and thank all those who came to the table and really invested that time. And I look forward to additional work that will be presented to us to engage. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Okay,
Madam
Dr.
President,
Negron?
if I may, I also want to publicly recognize my project leads, and that was Assistant Superintendent Keisha Red Hannans and Chief of Staff Dr. Finley. So again, the 3 of us take the lead of project leads, and then we have an amazing design project team also that supports us. So that's another small group working with us, planning, preparing everything. And then also the design team as a whole. Like Mr. Wilcox mentioned, right? He gave up a vacation day to spend it with us. And I know that others in that room, I had to leave work behind and businesses behind to be able to engage in the work. So I truly appreciate the time that is being invested. And I know that from my arrival, I insisted on this word together, that together we are striving for that next chapter of excellence. And I really believe that this is an example of how we are working together to build that. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Negron.
And I think with that, I do want to also bring another update. I know that we're always speaking about attendance, we're always speaking about literacy. At times, we're also speaking about math. But I want to assure you, we're doing all the work. That doesn't mean that we dismiss all the other content areas, because they all matter, right, in getting our kids ready. And today, we just wanted to take a short amount of time to share with you the work that we're doing around physical education and also, health. And for that, I have here Assistant Superintendent Red Hannant and also Eric Barbarito with us.
Greetings, everyone. We're excited tonight to come before you to talk to you about our health and PE initiatives, and you will see that we are as data-driven in health and PE as we are in literacy and mathematics. Before I share screen, I'll have Director Barbarito, Director Patowski, I'm sorry, and Assistant Principal Barbarito introduce themselves, and then I'll share screen.
Hi, good evening. Eric Pachkowski. I'm Director of PE Health and Athletics.
I'm Eric Barbarito. I'm the Assistant Principal for Physical Education, Health, and Assistant Athletics.
So, Eric, I'll start, and then when we get into the implementation, I'll turn it over to you. So,
Okay.
on the first screen, I just want to note that New Haven's been making significant gains in where we stand on the 4 levels of fitness testing in comparison to our state. So, the state now is at 45%. New Haven's at 44%. But looking at that data, we came up with a lot of things, and one is there's a disparity not just in individual schools, but in individual athletes. And if you could go to the next screen, please, Keisha. And when you look at fitness, an important thing to note is, like, you don't start a fitness program by running a marathon. You don't start a fitness program by being the strongest guy if you go to a gym or whatever. So what we wanted to do is take base data. We wanted to look at, have our PE teachers, and we did this in meeting with them and coming up with a plan to improve fitness in students. So what we asked our phys ed teachers to do is to test their students right at the beginning of the year, and then take that data to set a baseline and adjust and modify our physical education lessons based on where students are. We also asked our teachers to have individual fitness goals for each student. The big picture data is the first slide that I saw you, but what we're trying to implement is to take each one of our students, see what their baseline is, modify what our lessons look like in our classrooms, testing them then at the halfway point of the year, and then testing them then at the end of the year, so we could come up with a plan where we could show individual growth for every single student in the district. If you go to the next slide, please. So we have this whole plan, and Eric talked on how we plan to get there. And we've also, on the last slide when he's done, we came up with a baseline of how we would measure growth in individual students. Two things that we hope to achieve in this is, one, to increase the fitness level of all our students across the district. And two, if we do that, it will also increase our scores at a state level. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, so if we go back to at least the first slide, which showed there was 44%. We were only 1% from the state. However, that's based on passing all 4 tests at once. If you break it down, which we have, our kids in the PACER, which is a cardiovascular test, 64.4% of our kids pass the PACER individually. Curl ups, which is our core, 83.2% of our kids passed that test. And then push-ups, which is our upper body strength, 67.3% of our students passed that in the state. And then the sit and reach, which is flexibility, 78.1% of our kids passed that. When we go to the growth, there's going to be a little disparity, but it's easy to understand why. But that's pretty good individually. So we want to make sure our kids are not just passing 1 or 2. So what we did is we had Rob Marone, I got to give him credit. He's a teacher, phys ed teacher at ESMS. He created these sheets that we do on Google. In every single school, we have them out, and they put down all their physical fitness scores for all part of the tests. We are able to monitor those grades, their testing. So we've tested in September. They are just completing right now their mid-year. I gave them until Friday of this week to get all their mid-year testing finished and their scores in the sheets. And then I started looking at those sheets, we could see that there's already some improvement from where kids were. We can monitor it. We can progress monitor the teacher. We can get on the teachers to make sure we're going the direction we want to. Next, Eric.
And the thing with this is also a change in the way that we are implementing physical education across the district. Traditional physical education was sport-based, and while we still will have a sport component to our physical education, we want New Haven's physical education to be more fitness-based, where students can then take their fitness level and whatever skills they learn in the activities they do, and hopefully springboard that into some type of lifelong activity and fitness goals.
So if we can go to the last sheet, this is something what the physical education department came up to track growth. Now we know that 44% does not tell our story of our kids. And I just showed you that individually in the test. It doesn't show what we're doing. We also wanted to come up with a way of showing growth. So I stole this idea from the reading inventory test, where we want to move up growth bands from where kids are, how we're measuring growth. So we wanted to do that, and we created this growth band here. And some of the great things that are happening is that 74% of our kids grew in the PACER test. They may not have passed the state, but they showed growth. Then we go into our sit and reach. Now, this is where the disparity, we said there were 78% that passed. There's not a lot of growth in sit and reach. It's a tough test. You're talking about inches and quarters. That was probably where we had the least amount of growth, where we had 44% and 45% growth. You have to measure both legs. And then we went into our curl-ups and our sit-ups. We had made 69% growth. I went through every single kid's scores from last year based on the last year's sheets. And we went through the growth levels, and that's what we came up with. And we improved our sheets this year. So we expect even better progress coming this year.
And just, finally with this, so this is great data we could collect. We can know where our students are, but there's also a big SEL component to this, where in the past, if a student didn't pass the test, they didn't just, they didn't pass the test, they failed. But in the implementation of this, a student is able to look and say, I was at level 1 on the PACER in September, but now here I am in February and then June, and I improved this much. So it allows success for all students if they put some work in and strive. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you guys for taking the time out to look at what we're doing in our physical education classes.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Questions or comments? Dr. Joyner and then Dr. Yarborough.
Madam Chair, first of all, this was a great presentation, and it is really a metaphor for what we have to do as a system. And the fact that Eric used the same kind of graphs that we use and measure some of the other subjects, I mean, that ought to be one of the things that we do across the board, so that no one would be confused about the growth standards that we set. what people don't realize is that the physical pathway is the most important one. And I had to convince Dr. Comer of that because he only had 5 pathways when I came to work with him. And I said, you should know better. You're a doctor. All you have to do to determine how important something is to remove it and see what happens next. So you have to have a body to go to school. You have to have a body to learn. And the brain is a physical organ, and the health of the body is directly related to the health of the mind. This also gives teachers an opportunity to talk to kids about the things that they do that, for want of a better term, that ruin their bodies. Because obviously, if you can't run 10 yards, then either you have a congenital lung or heart disorder, or you might have a habit that prevents you from maximizing the use of your body. So I think this is off to a good start. The changing of PE from sports-oriented to lifelong fitness is so important. And all you have to do is be my age, and you will know how the stuff that you did in your 20s can come back to either help you or hurt you in your 70s. And I think that I never smoked, I never drank. I did do some crazy stuff, but I guess I had some kind of blessing on me. And I can't say enough for Eric and Eric, because these guys don't know when to go home. You can go over at the field house and see Eric over there and see Eric over there. And Eric Barbarito is a 3rd generation New Haven educator. His grandfather, Mark Barbarito, was in charge of the business curriculum in the district. His father, Peter Barbarito, and I coached together at Hill House. He was the athletic director and in charge of PE as well. And Eric he could have worked any place in the world, but he came back home. Even though he grew up in Prospect, he came back to New Haven to work and become one of our greatest football coaches, as well as one of our greatest educators. So thanks a lot, guys. And thanks a lot, Eric, both Erics, Eric with the K and Eric with the C.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, thank you. I'm very excited by your presentation and what you shared. I don't think I've been this excited about PE before personally going through school. Data excites me. So I really do appreciate seeing the data because it allows us to tell a story. But I think also what each of you spoke about personally, or what each of you spoke about specifically in terms of looking at actual individual students and trying to tell more of the stories that initially a first shot of the data don't show. Looking both and sharing both with us our percentages overall compared to the state, but also looking at the individual components that were tested and looking at growth. I love the ingenuity of seeing what's done in another discipline and adapting it to physical education. I think I also heard you speak about seeing the benefits of a sports-based curriculum versus a curriculum that's more responsive to the larger student body and making a change and making improvements in how you teach. And the other professional athletic teachers and coaches who talk about how to personalize the training for each student and the goals of each student. So there's a lot that you spoke about. I won't name all of it, but I do appreciate what you're doing and how you're doing it. And Dr. Negron, thank you very much for bringing this topic forward for us today. And just to touch a little bit on what Dr. Joyner spoke about, as a biomedical scientist and as someone interested in genetics and the intersection of human health and disease and environmental impacts and lifestyle choices on human health, I remember making a decision long ago that if I could help people improve their physical state, that would help them to make better decisions. But it's really hard if you're in pain, or it's really hard if you're incapacitated, or it's really hard if something is going on, let's say with me physically. Today I had a headache when I woke up and I saw that snow, and I made a decision to get back in my bed. And I said, well, let me try to eat something. Let me try to drink some water. And it wasn't, it was not a major headache, but it did impact my performance. I had a neighbor who came out and helped with the snow, and it made all the difference. But I think that what you have brought forward for us and for the district and for those who are watching is a vital component to the whole child. Once again, that Dr. Joyner spoke about, and is just something that I'm very excited about and appreciate. So thank you very much. Thank you all who contributed and who do this day in and day out. The one last thing I'll say, when we were closed and learning from home from the pandemic, my daughter was in school online at Beecher Kindergarten, and the physical education virtually was the best. I was shocked at what these PE teachers did. They used technology, but they got the young children moving. And what shocked me more, because I was in kindergarten, that means I was kneecap to kneecap with my daughter, and all the other parents, grandparents, aunts, helpers were kneecap to kneecap. They had us doing these exercises with these kids. So just a huge shout out to the PE team and all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Ms. Downer and then Dr. Benitez.
So I just wanted to say thank you. I heard their presentation during the Teaching and Learning Committee, and I just wanted to say thank you. I was super impressed by the presentation. PE is extremely important when we start developing motor skills and keeping the children, healthy, and it does reflect their teaching and learning. I just wanted to just add a little bit, maybe ask a question to see if we can actually look into getting a free app where we can actually collect data. There are apps that are available for the school system, but being that to get the free app and also include our teachers and staff, one of the things that is very evident in the school system is that we also have to take care of our teachers, so ways to reduce staff stress and burnout. These are very important things as far as, the mental health of our teachers, which it also trickles down to the student as they're learning also. And that, you don't have to look at it now, but it's just a way of, just to look into a free app, a wellness app, where you can push information also, and also collect data. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Downer. Dr. Benitez?
Yes, I mean, I agree with what my peers, board members have said. But I want to give a shout out on how you brought that SEL component and how important that is for young people who might be learning how to walk the right way or even run. I mean, I remember my PE teachers actually working with kids on learning how to walk and run properly, because many of them grew up in apartments, grew up in places that didn't have enough physical activity opportunities, but thinking that you are also intentionally thinking about what is the social emotional learning that can take place while they are learning to work with their physical and motor skills. I am touched, really touched in my heart on this one. I shouldn't be like mushy like that, but I have to say, it is a good thing. I want to congratulate both of you and Ms. Hannon's great work leading your team. This was a really good presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Dr. Negron, does that conclude your report?
That does conclude my presentations for tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Negron and staff. Moving on to the president's report, I have tentatively scheduled our board retreat for Monday, March 4th. It'll be either 5 or 5:30. So far, some of the agenda items are FOIA, the roles and responsibilities of a board member, and then highlights of some policies. If there are any topics that you would like to see discussed, please text or email me and I will consider them and talk to Attorney Natalia Sierra Milan to include those in the agenda. Okay, but for now, just hold that date, Monday, March 4th, either 5 or 5:30. I'm hoping 5 o'clock, but I'm not sure if with work commitments, most of us can make 5. So I'll be reaching out to you individually on that. Okay, questions or comments? All right, we'll move on to Head Start report. Mr. Wilcox.
This will be brief because we have not met since our last full board meeting. We meet this Thursday at 5 p.m. via Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Citywide School Building Committee report.
We met last Thursday by Zoom. One of the major things that we discussed was the major project report, which should be posted on the website for that committee, which goes over all the major renovation capital projects, etc. Another big thing that we did hear about was also that work is progressing with the design team and the architects related to the adult education building, and the people seem to be pretty happy about it. City engineer Giovanni Zinn reported that it was a good meeting and productive, and the rest of the team there also seemed pretty excited about it. So I think that's good news as well.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Finance and operations. Mr. Wilcox.
All right, so just briefly, finance and operations, the minutes are included in the board packet and posted on the website. But just to let people know, one of 2 things that we did talk about updating some policies. We voted to move one on to the governance committee for their review, which I have not sent to them yet, and I will. My apologies for not doing that yet. We discussed we know needed changes in the procurement policy, and that'll continue to be an agenda item. Also, importantly, we're updating. We looked at a draft of a new F&O cover memo to make it more easy to see the information that's put down. We talked about some changes, some extra information we'd like to see in there, and we invite everybody, if you want to take a look. There is a draft that we looked at is posted on the website. I expect there'll be another draft with some of the changes that we discussed at the last meeting that'll be posted this Friday, but this will be a new cover memo that'll replace the cover memos that we've been using. We also discussed the need to also look at the cover memo for amendments to previously funded agreements, just to make sure that we're collecting enough information there for folks. So, invite you all to take a look at that, and please send to the committee members and the superintendent any suggestions you have for as far as that goes. And then 2 other little things. We did talk about our discussion calendar, and I expect we'll have a revision of that for the next couple months, just to give people a heads up of the things we're planning to discuss in the committee. And then finally, there was in public testimony at the last full board meeting, there was a complaint from someone about the substitute teacher pay. So we got an update on that. And the issue was the change in the Connecticut minimum wage that went into effect on January 1st. We had Ms. Hannons, our CFO, reported that the city of New Haven's corrected those rates to have the new daily rate of $105.91, and that retroactive payments were made for the first paycheck for 2024 to make everybody whole for those that didn't receive what they were entitled to by Connecticut law. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we did take a look at that. We got information on it and confirmation that it was a solved problem, and there was assurances that moving forward that they're going to be working to make sure that these automatic pay increases are going to be going into effect on January 1st are going to be reflected in the first January pay period as appropriate. So.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Questions or comments for Mr. Wilcox? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the governance report. Dr. Benitez.
Yes, good evening, everybody, board members and the public. Our last meeting, we were very honored to welcome Ms. Andrea Downer to our team. We had a very rich conversation about the need for us to standardize our processes, and Ms. Downer was a very good, how can I say, person to enlighten us with some of the experience she's had in her career. And so one of the things that we have been working on for a while, but we're able to better articulate some of the work that we need to do. We are putting together a governance committee policy review protocol. We pretty much have it ready for our next meeting, where we will review it as a governance committee. And hopefully we will be able to share these with every board member in next month after we meet. And what we want is to find a way to make this a very streamlined process that makes it clear to everybody that even though we individually have our own opinion, our own views of how the board should operate and how the city and our staff should operate, that we as a board need to agree and reach consensus on the policies that we pass. One of the things we also want to make sure is that when we pass a policy, we also support our staff in understanding the intention of the board, but we will also ask that the superintendent and the executive team also supports the policies by making sure that implementation of the policy is clear to the staff in every building and every classroom. This is something that I think it's historically New Haven has been able to do that, but we have had some policies that have been without being updated. So we are working on that. So we will need to help the staff do this again. One of the things that I want to share with you is that I would like to ask every committee that works and every individual that works with policy that even when we review a policy and we find the need, we don't find a need to update, we should have a dated review on that policy. Many times we say this policy is not required to be changed. It's right on the law. It continues to support the intention of the board. So we don't touch the policy. However, if the policy was passed in 1995, people may think that the board has not been reviewing policies that have not been updated. So therefore, one of the things that I'm going to request from the teams is that when they review a policy and the policy does not need updating, we need to put a date on review on 2024, 2023, 2025, whatever they've done in terms of reviewing policy. I don't want to say more, but again, trying to make sure that all the work that we have been doing in getting everybody on board with updating policies that are required to be updated, that happens. And I want you all to be patient, because we need to address required policy before we address policies that may be needed but may not be required, because we are still adhering to the law in those areas. So thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Questions or comments for Dr. Benitez?
I have
Dr.
some,
Joyner?
right. I can't overstate how important this is. and Dr. Benitez has done a great job of making it simple. We're going to need to, in the tradition of project management, have someone from the staff assigned to each committee to do a lot of the work that has to be done on that side. And if we're going to build policy from the ground up, we ought to be checking with teachers and people in buildings and principals. We draft policy to make sure that the policy does provide a level of some boundaries around what we're trying to do. And so that's really, really important. The other thing we're going to need someone from the webmaster to make sure that we get the policy published on the website and that everything is in the same font. There's an aesthetic issue that we have to deal with. And again, there's no blame, but we want people to go into our website and be able to navigate it easily. And that when they go in, it won't be a copy of something. It'll be inputted by someone who the superintendent has designated to manage that. Her project management structure is the best way to run a large system. And so we know who's responsible for these various things. So that's really important. And the idea of having a liaison to the board is important, because then that person can be the link that will create the kind of communication loops we need in order to do excellent work. And let's go back to these two words, coherence and alignment. Everything we do should be aligned with everything that must go on in the classroom, in the school. And that relates to maintenance schedules in terms of the health of our buildings physically. And thank God we have an engineer on the board, as well as materials, professional development for staff. I can see we're going in the right direction. But again, I like Dr. Benitez, ask people to be a little bit patient, because we're coming from a long history of challenge that started when Dr. Mayo left the district, and then we had COVID. So we got a lot of rebuilding to do. And we're going to need everybody's support. And we don't mind your criticism as long as we have your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Okay, seeing no further questions or comments, we'll move on to Food Service Task Group report. Dr. Yarborough.
Yes, thank you. The Food Service Task Group will meet this Wednesday, February 14th. We also are fortunate to share the date of Valentine's Day. There may or may not be singing at this Food Service Task Group meeting. So you will have to come and see. You will have to come and see. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Okay, Mr. Wilcox, questions or
Real
comments
quick,
for Dr. Yarborough?
there's also a time change on the Food Service Task Force meetings, which moving from 5 p.m. to 4 p.m. moving forward to accommodate schedules. So just, I don't remember if that's been mentioned to the board.
Has that change been posted onto the website and on the agendas and all that?
I believe so. We'll confirm.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, with that, I move that we go into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 12006 B and E and 1210 B4 and 10 concerning strategy and negotiations with respect to pending litigation in the matter of Light versus NHBOE and the discussion which will result in the disclosure of attorney-client privilege records. And then discussion and possible action on matters heard in executive session when we come out. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote to go into executive session. Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Ms. Downer,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. So I'll see you at the executive session link, which was sent, I believe, by Ms. Camacho.
Yes, I just want to confirm everybody has the
Oh,
link.
yes. Yep, and Dr. Negron and Attorney Peter Murphy will join us in executive session.
You got it.
Thank you.
There should be another link coming from Viviana Camacho for different Zoom rooms to join.
Yes. All right, I'm getting it. Thank you.
Everyone back. So we're waiting on Ms. Downer. Just give her a few seconds. There she is. Okay, so we are out of executive session, back in regular session. There were no votes taken in executive session. No further discussion required at this time. And so with that being the final item of the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. We'll vote to adjourn. Ms. Downer? Ms. Downer?
She's muted.
Sorry, yes. Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
See.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Good night.